this storm. Long before the fame, Margaret Hyra was born in Fairfield, Connecticut on November 19, 1961. Her mum, Susan Jordan, split time between acting and teaching, while her dad, Harry, also taught. She eventually adopted the name Meg Ryan, borrowing her grandmother's maiden name. That simple rebranding would soon echo globally. After starting her studies at the University of Connecticut, she moved over to New York University. Just one term shy of her degree, she dropped out to chase Hollywood dreams. It was a massive gamble that breaks most people, but she was different. She got her first real break on the soap As the World Turns, portraying Betsy Stewart from 1982 to 1984. These shows were harsh teachers, but she mastered the game fast. Daytime TV wasn't enough for her. She had her sights set on the big screen. In 1986, she hit the jackpot with the Tom Cruise blockbuster, Top Gun. Casting her as Carol Bradshaw, the spouse of Goose, didn't give her top billing, but the movie was a massive hit. Both the public and industry insiders started paying attention. 3 years down the road, she secured the iconic part that would forever mark her legacy. That film was the 1989 classic When Harry Met Sally. Portraying Sally Albright, she voiced the theory that guys and girls can't stay platonic because attraction always complicates things. This project was witty, hilarious, and hit surprisingly deep emotional notes. Plus, it contained a cinematic moment that remains legendary to this day. That performance earned her an initial Golden Globe nod. The entire 1990s were basically her decade, fueled by 4 massive romcoms that earned over $670 million. Between Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, she teamed up with Tom Hanks twice. Their natural spark on camera became the stuff of Hollywood legend. People felt guaranteed a happy ending whenever they sat down for one of her films. Yet, she wasn't content being boxed into just one light-hearted category. Eager to prove her versatility, she played a struggling alcoholic in 1994. That gritty turn in When a Man Loves a Woman secured her a Screen Actors Guild nomination. By 1998, she dominated the charts with 2 hits alongside Nicolas Cage and Tom Hanks. Her popularity was peaking, and by the year 2000, her paycheck finally matched her fame. She banked $15 million for the kidnapping drama Proof of Life. Pulling in that kind of cash was an incredible feat for anyone in the business at that time. This solidified her position as a top-tier earner in the industry. With that kind of clout, she basically had her pick of any script in town. Naturally, she passed on some huge opportunities along the way. Most notably, she turned down the lead role in The Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster eventually took that part and won an Oscar for it. Ryan, however, focused on being a relatable, warm presence rather than exploring grim or violent themes. She understood her fans perfectly and delivered exactly what they craved. For 10 straight years, that game plan was completely flawless. Despite the massive earnings and the public persona, her private world was far from the fairy tale she starred in. She was tied to a fellow actor she met years prior during production. Sadly, that long-term relationship was starting to fall apart. The guy about to enter her life was notorious for his fiery personality and blunt honesty. That man was Russell Crowe, and his presence on their new film set shifted everything. But before he showed up, Dennis Quaid was the main man in her life. Quaid wasn't just Mr. Ryan, he was a legitimate heavy hitter in Hollywood. He had already headlined major hits long before she became a global sensation. During their early days in the late 80s, he was probably the biggest star. However, the spotlight is fickle, often brightening for one person while dimming for another. By the year 2000, the dynamic had flipped so drastically that Quaid felt invisible. He later confessed to feeling like a ghost when they were out in public. Their initial meeting happened on the set of Inner Space in 1987, though it stayed strictly business. A year later, while filming DOA, the sparks finally flew, and they moved fast. A 1990 wedding was postponed when he came clean about his serious substance abuse issues. While that honesty could have been a deal-breaker, it actually pushed him toward recovery. Quaid admitted to the press that he'd been hiding a heavy addiction from her for a long time. After getting sober in 1990, they finally moved forward with their vows. They tied the knot on Valentine's Day, 1991, in a truly romantic setting. Their son, Jack, joined the family on April 24, 1992. Jack eventually followed their lead into the industry, landing roles in hits like The Hunger Games and the show The Boys. Back then, he was just a kid, caught between 2 famous parents juggling work and the intense Hollywood spotlight. Unfortunately, their union was far from solid. Away from the cameras, he was still battling the same internal issues that plagued him before they married. He eventually opened up about those dark times in the 1980s to the media. He revealed that during his lowest points, his daily consumption of those illicit substances was staggering. He spoke about hitting rock bottom with a spiritual awakening, witnessing his own demise and the loss of everything he loved. That vivid premonition pushed him into treatment, where he finally managed to kick the habit for good. However, his matrimonial bond had already frayed beyond repair. A different kind of pressure was weighing on them that had zero to do with narcotics and everything to do with their careers. While Ryan became a household name in the 1980s, Quaid's star began to fade. She was crushing it with one-hit movie after another, while his roles just weren't hitting the same mark. Speaking with Megyn Kelly on NBC back in 2018, he confessed that her skyrocketing celebrity status really got under his skin. He recalled walking through the Big Apple and hearing fans screaming her name at every turn. Eventually, he had to face the reality that he felt totally invisible. Looking back on those years, he admitted he felt pretty pathetic for letting it get to him like that. Although he views it as a learning curve now, he says it was incredibly painful back then. By June of the year 2000, the pair made their split public. Their legal separation wrapped up in 2001, but the actual sequence of events sparked a massive firestorm because of what followed. Rumors were already swirling about her and Russell Crowe, her co-star in Proof of Life. The gossip rags were convinced that a secret fling was the real reason the marriage collapsed. Ryan wasn't having it. In October of 2000, she explained to W Magazine that their union had crumbled long before the media turned their tragedy into a spectator sport. She insisted the public caught on way after the fact. At first, she maintained that infidelity wasn't a factor. She claimed neither of them took the end of their marriage lightly, and that Dennis had been faithful. Those comments didn't exactly age well, especially compared to her 2006 sit-down with Oprah Winfrey. By that point, the divorce was ancient history. She finally felt comfortable being blunt about the reality of their situation. She told Oprah that the marriage had become incredibly toxic. According to her, the spark had been dead for ages before they officially called it quits. She even suggested that she probably should have walked away much sooner. The picture she drew was of a dead relationship that existed only on paper long before the lawyers got involved. For his part, Quaid was open about the emotional wreckage. Talking to W Magazine in July of 2001, he described spiraling through shock, misery, and rage. He noted that a breakup like that completely destroys your sense of self. To him, it felt exactly like a death in the family. The man who used to be the main attraction had to watch his wife turn into a global icon while he faded away. Then, he had to watch her walk out the door. Before the ink was even dry on their divorce, Ryan was already being tied to a new man. And this wasn't just some random actor. We're talking about an Academy Award winner, famous for his raw intensity and his reputation for being a loose cannon who spoke his mind. That man was Russell Crowe, and their subsequent romance would trigger one of the biggest media frenzies of the early 2000s. Regarding the whole Russell Crowe situation, Ryan maintained that her marriage was already dead by the time they met. Or, at least, that was her side of the story. The fans and the tabloids weren't buying it. Once the paparazzi caught them holding hands, there was no going back. America's favourite girl next door had supposedly dumped her husband for a brooding Australian tough guy. The scandal exploded instantly, and the media wouldn't let it go. Even though the fling lasted less than a year, it derailed Ryan's career path for good. They first crossed paths in 2000 on the set of the thriller Proof of Life. Crowe played a negotiator named Terry, while Ryan played Alice, a woman trying to save her kidnapped husband. The script called for some major romantic tension between them. Off camera, that tension turned into something very real. The chemistry they were supposed to be faking for the cameras had become the real deal. In July of 2000, well before she was legally single, the two were spotted holding hands at Tom Cruise's big premiere party for Mission Impossible 2. It was exactly the kind of evidence the tabloids lived for. Seeing two A-list stars leaving a party together looking that suspicious was a gold mine. Before that, they'd been spotted getting cozy in various London hotspots while they were still filming. This pair trekked from the Golden State to the land down under, constantly side by side. Insiders watching the romance blossom saw two souls totally lost in their own world. One source told People magazine that they acted like a couple of lovesick teenagers. They spent hours talking and sent endless emails to each other. He was constantly on the phone with her. Another insider noted that Ryan was completely head over heels for Crowe. They even played along with a rumor that they were buying a house in Australia, but nobody was fooled. A friend thought it was charming how Crowe would point out houses and ask for her opinion. They were playing a game of happy couple in public, while her real life was falling apart in court. But despite being seen everywhere, they were actually very tight-lipped. They wouldn't even give their friends the full story. Both of them skipped out on doing press for their movie just to avoid the awkward questions about their affair. Such a move sent Taylor Hackford into an absolute rage. The filmmaker told the Calgary Sun that this slight cut deep. He'd crafted something special and was desperate for it to gain traction. However, the leads completely ghosted the media to dodge prying queries regarding their romance. Hackford felt certain their silence sabotaged the production's momentum. Ultimately, the fling fizzled out in under 1 year. They reportedly started their fling in early 2000 and were done by the time Christmas rolled around. By December, they had already split and were spending the holidays on opposite sides of the world. The end of the road was very quiet. There were no messy public statements or deep dive interviews explaining what went wrong. They just went their separate ways. However, the fallout lingered long after the romance died. Ryan felt she had been branded a Scarlet Woman, a term she actually used in W magazine. The actress who played the lovable Sally Albright was suddenly being labelled as a homewrecker by the public. Her perfect, wholesome image that used to command $15 million per film took a massive hit. She went from being the nation's sweetheart to a total outcast in the blink of an eye. Soon enough, the same studios that used to beg to work with her began to distance themselves. The Crowe affair might have been short, but the damage to Meg Ryan's career was permanent. She went from being Hollywood's most valuable asset to nothing more than a punchline in the gossip columns. Yet, that scandalous romance wasn't the sole flashpoint casting a shadow over her subsequent years. There were other scandals on the horizon that had nothing to do with her love life, and everything to do with how the industry punishes women who don't follow the script. Meg Ryan's public image took a massive hit from the Russell Crowe drama, yet the controversies surrounding her only continued to pile up. During 2003, she sat for a London interview with Michael Parkinson, who was arguably the most esteemed talk show host in British history. A mere 17 minutes of footage would haunt her professional life forever, earning her reputations for being icy and stuck up. This sit-down went down in history as a total train wreck. Even Parkinson admitted his mistakes decades later, though the damage from that October 2003 meeting had already been done. While visiting Britain to plug Jane Campion's gritty thriller In the Cut, she stepped far outside her rom-com comfort zone. It was a sharp pivot from the bubbly roles that initially built her brand. Knowing the project's graphic nature would spark debate, she was prepared for some heat, but the aggressive grilling she faced on air took her completely by surprise. From the very beginning, Parkinson was combative, basically demanding an explanation for why she would even participate in such a gritty film. The host painted the movie as hopeless and grim, hinting that her messy split and high-profile fling were the real reason she started chasing such depressing scripts. Her irritation was plain to see as she shut down, offering nothing but clipped, monosyllabic replies. Desperate to escape the set, she finally demanded the interviewer cut the segment short. Public backlash hit instantly, with the host later branding her conduct inexcusable. He claimed she snubbed fellow guests and acted completely dismissive toward the people in the stands. UK tabloids went on the attack, portraying her as a moody and elitist diva. By 2006, a public survey crowned this awkward exchange as the third most jarring moment in television history, trailing only a physical assault by Grace Jones and David Icke's Doomsday Prophecy. For a long time, the public story was set in stone. She was the antagonist, and he was the wounded party. The narrative shifted in 2021, when Parkinson told Radio Times he regretted not being more polite during their infamous exchange. He fessed up to his obvious irritation, confessing that snapping at a visitor was way out of line. Looking back, he felt he acted pretty high and mighty, and definitely should have handled it better. Asked what he'd tell her today, he said he was sorry, though he still insisted she played a role in the awkwardness. It fell short of a full apology, yet he did admit that the sit-down wasn't exactly his proudest hour. As for Ryan, she has kept her comments on the drama to a minimum. In a 2006 Marie Claire piece, she described him as a judgmental father figure who seemed to be scolding her. By 2024, she told the Times of London that she made zero effort to speak with him after the cameras stopped. She walked away, claiming he was a total stranger she'd never think about again. While that interview definitely left a mark, it wasn't the sole reason her star started to fade. Both In the Cut and her subsequent film Against the Ropes crashed and burned. When In the Cut debuted in 2003, it only scraped together $23 million worldwide. That 2004 boxing flick opened to a measly $3 million. Hollywood's former Golden Girl was suddenly struggling to get anyone to show up to the theatre. Following those failures, she vanished for 3 years, later telling the New York Times magazine that she was completely burnt out. She felt like a detached observer of her own life, and was ready to walk away as soon as the industry did. They was her code for Hollywood, the town that crowned her queen before dragging her through the mud. While she stayed hidden, a fresh wave of drama began to brew. People began noticing her face looked different, specifically pointing out that her once famous eyes now appeared somewhat uneven. Fans noticed her facial features seemed oddly inflated, sparking a wildfire of plastic surgery rumors that refused to die down. Throughout it all, Ryan maintained total silence regarding any cosmetic tweaks. In May 2023, she made a surprise appearance in New York, to back her pal Michael J. Fox. She attended the premiere of his film Still, which highlights his Parkinson's battle. Photos from that event went viral for the wrong reasons, with many online critics cruelly questioning what happened to her appearance. Some users even claim she was starting to look like Madonna, another celebrity who faces constant scrutiny over her aging process. Tabloids claimed her evolving face was why she got snubbed for the 2022 Top Gun sequel. Rather than a cameo, the writers just killed her character off before the movie even started. That rumor stayed unverified, yet it perfectly illustrated the idea that the industry had turned its back. Ryan, however, does her best to ignore the endless chatter about her appearance. During a 2024 interview, she shut down questions about her looks, telling the reporter she wanted to move on. She told Glamour in 2023 that she refuses to acknowledge the online hate, calling such meanness completely unnecessary. She opened up about getting older, explaining that maturity brings a certain freedom to speak your mind, without worrying about the fallout. This shift in perspective came during a break from Hollywood that stretched nearly 10 years. In October 2023, she told People magazine that a massive hiatus was vital for her personal development. She simply wanted the space to think for herself again. By 2023, Ryan finally returned to the spotlight by writing, directing, and starring in the film What Happens Later. It wasn't a massive hit, but it was a deeply meaningful comeback project. She is now creating on her own terms, telling stories she loves, and refusing to let old scandals dictate her path. Yet the mystery of her affair with Russell Crowe still lingers, even though the tabloids and Ryan tell very different stories. The actual truth, which she has slowly shared over time, is far more intricate than any sensational headline ever suggested. Here is the reality of that romance. For decades, everyone believed she simply dumped Dennis Quaid to be with Crowe. The story was that her infidelity ruined her marriage and her career, and that became the gospel truth for the public. Mainstream media and gossip rags sold the world a specific narrative, but Meg Ryan's side of the story is far messier. The scandal didn't actually destroy her marriage, mostly because the relationship had already turned to dust. Crowe wasn't some home wrecker tearing apart a happy family, simply because there wasn't one left to save. While the press labelled her a villain, she actually found the entire ordeal to be a moment of personal freedom. She later reflected that being branded as a scandalous woman was actually a very interesting and eye-opening experience. She admitted the experience was painful, yet it provided a massive sense of relief. No longer burdened by public judgment, she shared a memory with The Guardian that perfectly captured this emotional shift. Striding through the One Aldwych Hotel lobby in London, she caused a complete scene. Conversation died as every eye turned toward her. Rather than crumbling under the pressure, she just burst out laughing. It dawned on her that societal judgment meant nothing when you truly understood your own worth. That realization felt like total freedom, she later admitted. Her fling with Crowe burned out quickly, ending in under 12 months. While a Proof of Life staffer brushed it off to People magazine as a standard set-side romance, a close contact of Ryan's claimed Crowe was looking for something deeper. That same source mentioned Russell was dead set on marrying Meg and starting a family. Truthfully, his devotion was becoming a bit much. He showered her with presents, including a vintage 1963 Buick and a new dog. Everyone called it a classic case of too much, too fast. It felt suffocating. Fresh off a messy divorce, Ryan wasn't looking for anything that heavy. Plus, the logistics were a nightmare. He was based in Australia while her home was in Los Angeles. Talking to the Herald Sun in February 2001, Crowe suggested the long distance killed the spark. He explained that he needed his roots to stay sane, and Meg felt the exact same way. Their goals simply didn't align. Living worlds apart turned their initial fire into a force that drove them away from each other. Even so, Crowe still has nothing but kind words for her. During that same interview, he praised her as a brave and stunning soul. He admitted missing her as a partner, though he was glad they remained on friendly terms. Ryan eventually found a new rhythm in her private life. Starting in 2010, she entered a long-running, on-again, off-again romance with country singer John Mellencamp. Word got out about their engagement in November 2018 after she flashed a diamond ring. She told InStyle that while marriage was on the horizon, she was just enjoying the honeymoon phase of being engaged. She mentioned to the New York Times magazine how much she loved the simple joy of their time together. Then, she jokingly quipped that maybe human relationships were actually meant for extraterrestrials. When the 2019 Governor's Awards rolled around, the ring was gone and the wedding was cancelled. Mellencamp later confessed to Esquire that his feelings for Meg remained deep. He looked back on their 10 years together, noting that her heart wasn't quite as invested as his. He praised her character, while admitting he probably wasn't the best partner. It was a humble conclusion to a 10-year saga, Fast forward to 2024, and Ryan appears to be single and enjoying her independence. Nowadays, she's all about her career, her charity work, and her kids. She welcomed a daughter from China into her life, eventually renaming the girl Daisy because it suited her spirit better. Much of her energy goes towards CAR, an organization focused on lifting women out of poverty through community support. On the flip side, Russell Crowe is currently settled down with Brittany Theriot, a one-time actress who pivoted to real estate and now works as his assistant. Their paths first crossed in 2013 on the Broken City set when she was 21. They sparked back up in 2020, debuting as a couple at a tennis court in Sydney. Theriot stayed by his side professionally, working as his right hand on 2022's The Greatest Beer Run Ever and his 2024 projects. The couple finally went official on the red carpet in October 2022 during the Poker Face premiere in Rome. Speaking with Carl Stefanovic on 60 Minutes in 2025, Crowe made it clear he was done with marriage. He figured doing it once was enough and had no desire for a round two. He questioned why he'd mess with his current state of bliss by getting the government involved again. He's already a father to 2 boys, with his ex-wife Aussie star Danielle Spencer. That pair split in 2012 and legally ended things by 2018. If you like this story, tap the next video, hit the like button, and subscribe for more celebrity deep dives.
What is it?
I have you to thank for it. For the first time in my life, when confronted with a horrible, insensitive person, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I said it.
Meg Ryan reigned supreme during her peak years. As the definitive icon of that time, she practically owned the global box office.
Yeah, she doesn't care about us.
Listen, she's crazy about you, and she's gonna spoil you right.
She earned massive paydays and enjoyed a level of fan devotion rarely seen, but the vibe shifted fast when her domestic world started falling apart. Then came her leading man, the iconic Russell Crowe. The resulting media circus would flip her entire existence upside down in a heartbeat. The real story behind the Meg Ryan and Russell Crowe drama is finally coming to light. Trust me, it isn't the tale you think you know. Ryan's meteoric ascent. Throughout the 1990s, she stood as a titan in the film industry. She essentially defined the rom-com genre, possessing the rare star power to guarantee a hit solo. If people craved romance, humor, or a good cry, she was their go-to star. Just 4 of her projects raked in more than $670 million. She commanded a $15 million fee per film, back when only elite men saw those numbers. Though hailed as the nation's darling, her world shattered by the turn of the millennium. Her downfall wasn't instantaneous. It triggered with a failing union, escalated into a fling, and exploded